Imagine this. You're lying in a small hut thousands of years ago. The wind outside howls like a beast, slipping through the cracks of mud walls. Your breath forms little clouds in the darkness. There is no heater, no electric blanket, not even a glass window to keep the cold away. Just you, your family, and the endless night pressing down. Or picture the opposite. The sun has scorched the earth all day. Now the night arrives, but the heat refuses to leave. The air is heavy, sticky, impossible to breathe. No fans, no air conditioning, only buzzing insects and the sound of your own restless body, twisting and turning, trying to find relief. How did ancient people manage to sleep in such extremes? How did they not only rest, but survive? Tonight, we journey back to a forgotten world. We will uncover the sleeping tricks, the survival hacks, and the ingenious habits that kept people alive through freezing winters and blazing summers. Some of these methods are clever, some are strange, and some may just surprise you enough to want to try them yourself. So, close your eyes, settle in, and let's travel back to the nights of our ancestors. For most of human history, cold was the greatest enemy of sleep. Before modern heating, surviving the night often meant surviving the cold. Ancient people didn't just sleep in winter, they fought for warmth. One of the most powerful weapons in that fight was the human body itself. Imagine a Viking longhouse in Scandinavia around the year 900. The winters are brutal, snow piles against the wooden walls, and outside, the fjords are frozen solid. But inside, it's a different scene. Dozens of people, men, women, children, are lying side by side on straw beds, wrapped in furs, not for comfort, but for survival. Body heat was their central heating system. Families, neighbors, even animals sometimes slept together. Cows and goats in the corner of the house weren't just livestock, they were heaters. The combined warmth of bodies and beasts could raise the temperature just enough to keep frostbite at bay. This wasn't unique to the Vikings. Across the world, from the icy steppes of Mongolia to the mountains of the Andes, people relied on closeness. Sleeping alone was a luxury few could afford in winter. Solitude could mean death, but body heat was only the beginning. Fire played its role too, but not in the way we might imagine. In medieval Europe, large fireplaces were often built in the center of a hall, but they weren't kept blazing all night. Wood was precious. Instead, families relied on the banked fire. Before bed, embers were carefully buried under ash, glowing silently until morning. These faint coals provided just enough heat to keep a room from freezing without consuming valuable fuel. Some households used a more personal trick, the bed warmer. Picture a shallow metal pan filled with hot coals, slid between sheets before sleep. It would chase away the chill, but at a risk. Sparks could escape, sheets could ignite. Many fires began this way. Yet for the promise of warmth, people took the chance. But perhaps the most ingenious adaptation to cold was found in the far north, among the Inuit, in the Arctic, where nights last for months and temperatures drop below freezing even inside igloos. They perfected the art of microclimates. An igloo wasn't just a snow dome, it was a carefully engineered sleep chamber. Inside, temperatures could rise to just above freezing, far warmer than the deadly cold outside. Furs lined the floor, and families curled together in nests of caribou skin, which trapped body heat better than almost any modern blanket. To an outsider, it looked harsh. To them, it was comfort. The lesson was clear. In the battle against cold, survival meant layering. Not just clothing, but layers of people, layers of furs, layers of space itself. From Europe's stone castles to nomadic tents on the Asian steppes, the night was a puzzle. Each layer of fire, of cloth, of companionship was a piece keeping death at bay. And yet, cold did more than threaten life. It shaped culture. It shaped sleep itself. Historians studying old diaries from Europe discovered something unusual: the pattern of segmented sleep. During long winter nights, people often didn't sleep in one continuous block. Instead, they had a first sleep and a second sleep. After a few hours, they would wake, sometimes to stoke the fire, sometimes to talk, pray, or even visit neighbors. Only later, as the embers glowed and the cold returned, would they settle into their second sleep. This rhythm, born of necessity, may have been the natural human pattern before modern lighting. And it reminds us, cold was not just an obstacle. It was a teacher. It forced people to innovate, to adapt, and even to reshape the very rhythm of human rest. So when you pull your blanket close tonight, remember, across thousands of years, through endless winters, people found ways to outwit the cold. Some methods were dangerous, some were ingenious, all were essential. And just as ancient people fought the cold, they also had to wrestle with the opposite problem: the unbearable heat of summer nights. Which leads us to the next chapter. If winter was a battle for warmth, summer was a war against suffocation. For ancient people, the night could be just as cruel as the day. Picture an ancient city in Mesopotamia around 3,000 years ago. The sun has scorched the clay walls all day, and as evening falls, the heat lingers like a heavy cloak. Inside mud brick houses, the air is trapped, thick, almost impossible to breathe. Windows were small, often just holes in the wall, designed more for defense than comfort. To sleep indoors was to surrender to the suffocating embrace of heat. So people went outside, on rooftops across Babylon and Ur. Families would drag mats and bedding to the open air. Under starlit skies, they slept exposed, hoping for a breeze from the river. Neighbors lined up side by side on flat roofs, entire households sleeping beneath the heavens. Privacy was lost, but relief was gained. And as they gazed at constellations shimmering above, sleep came easier in the night air. This tradition of sleeping under the stars wasn't unique to Mesopotamia. Across the Mediterranean, in Greece and Rome, wealthy citizens built open courtyards, atriums, and peristyles, spaces where air could circulate freely. On blistering nights, beds were moved to these shaded patios, or even gardens where fountains cooled the air. In Rome, the poet Martial once mocked his friend for owning a villa so hot that he had to sleep outside like a beggar. But the truth was, everyone did it. From emperors to commoners, summer heat drove people into the open. But not everyone had villas or courtyards. For the poor, adaptation was more creative. Ancient Egyptians, facing relentless desert nights, invented their own form of air conditioning. Before bed, they soaked reed mats or linen sheets in water. Then they slept under these damp covers, letting the desert breeze evaporate the moisture, cooling their skin. Imagine lying down beneath wet cloth, with night winds passing over you, a primitive but surprisingly effective cooling system. Even their architecture was built around survival. Egyptian houses had small windows placed high, allowing hot air to escape. Narrow alleys funneled breezes between buildings. Thick mud walls absorbed the sun's heat by day and released it slowly at night. These weren't luxuries. They were matters of survival. Meanwhile, in India, people developed the art of the koos curtain. Woven from fragrant vetiver grass, these screens were hung in doorways and soaked with water. As winds passed through, they cooled the air, filling homes with a fresh, earthy scent. Families often slept near these damp curtains, enjoying a night of relief in climates where temperatures could stay above 30 degrees Celsius long after sunset. In China, during the Tang Dynasty, summer nights inspired another innovation, the bamboo mat. Unlike cloth, bamboo stayed cool against the skin, resisting the heat that trapped itself in soft bedding. Families rolled out these mats across the floor, stretching out to find rest. Combined with hand fans, painted, decorated, sometimes carved with poetry, people found ways to invite sleep even as the night refused to cool. But heat did more than test the body. It tested the mind. Ancient doctors often warned against feverish nights, believing that too much heat while sleeping could disturb dreams, weaken the spirit, even shorten life. In Greece, Hippocrates himself recommended sleeping in airy rooms, away from stagnant heat, for health as much as comfort. The advice was simple: move with the seasons. And so, across civilizations, sleeping arrangements changed with the weather. In summer, people abandoned the warmth of enclosed rooms. They slept outside, on rooftops, in gardens, even in courtyards of temples. Some carried portable beds, light enough to move wherever the night breeze was strongest. For them, survival meant flexibility. But heat had another strange effect. It turned night into a social time. In hot climates, when the sun set but the air still burned, people often delayed sleep. They talked, shared meals, even worked by moonlight, waiting for the rare moment when coolness arrived. Only then, in the quietest hours before dawn, did sleep finally come. From Mesopotamia's rooftops to Egypt's wet linens, from Rome's gardens to China's bamboo mats, the story was the same. To sleep was to adapt, to bend with the seasons, to endure what nature demanded. And yet, whether freezing or sweltering, these extremes of climate did something profound. They didn't just shape how people slept. They shaped how people built, how they lived, how they dreamed. And now, as we leave behind the heat of summer nights, let us step into another forgotten secret of the past. How ancient people created the very tools of sleep, the beds, the blankets, and the strange inventions that carried them into the world of dreams. When we think of sleep today, we imagine soft mattresses, fluffy pillows, and warm blankets. But for most of human history, the very tools of sleep looked and felt very different. To our ancestors, beds and pillows weren't about comfort. They were about survival, status, and sometimes even the spirit world. Let's begin in ancient Egypt. Archaeologists have uncovered something curious in tombs. Headrests made not of feathers, but of carved wood, ivory, even stone. Imagine laying your head on a curved block, your neck suspended in the air. To us, it seems impossibly uncomfortable. But to the Egyptians, these hard headrests were sacred. They believed raising the head protected the sleeper from evil spirits that crept along the ground at night. The god Bes, a protector of sleep and dreams, was often carved onto these headrests, guarding the sleeper through the dangerous hours of darkness. Comfort was secondary, protection came first. Across the world in China, the story was surprisingly similar. By the Tang and Song dynasties, porcelain pillows had become common, smooth, cold, often beautifully decorated with paintings or poems. These pillows were more than resting places. They were works of art, and in some cases, tools of health. Physicians claimed that hard ceramic pillows cooled the head and cleared the mind, preventing nightmares and preserving energy. Some were even filled with herbs, like mint or camphor, releasing faint aromas to ease sleep. What seems strange to us, resting on a brick, was, to them, both medicine and luxury. In Japan, pillows took another unusual form. The takamakura, or high pillow, was often a small wooden stand padded lightly at the top, but it wasn't designed for comfort. Instead, it was meant to protect elaborate hairstyles, especially for women. To lie on a soft cushion would crush a carefully arranged knot of hair. So instead, women balanced their heads delicately on these hard supports, sacrificing ease for beauty. Here, sleep was not just rest, it was duty, even discipline. And then there were beds themselves. In many parts of the world, beds weren't raised platforms, but simply mats rolled onto the floor. In India, the charpé, a wooden frame strung with woven rope, was light, airy, and portable. It allowed air to circulate beneath, keeping the sleeper cool in hot climates. In contrast, medieval Europe often reserved raised beds for the wealthy. A grand bed, carved of oak and draped in heavy curtains, wasn't just furniture. It was a fortress against the cold, a shield against drafts, and a symbol of status. To own a bed was to display power. But perhaps the strangest sleep tools were not physical at all. Many cultures turned to charms, herbs, and rituals to protect and guide their dreams. In ancient Greece, sprigs of poppy or chamomile were placed under pillows to invite restful slumber. The Romans believed in placing laurel leaves by the bedside to ward off bad dreams. In some Native American traditions, dream catchers, woven webs hung above the sleeper, were believed to trap nightmares and let only good dreams flow through. Sleep, after all, was not just physical rest. It was a doorway to another realm, one filled with both wonder and danger. Even the act of covering oneself was different. Blankets, as we know them, were rare. In colder regions, people used heavy animal hides, thick and weighty. In warmer lands, sleep might mean nothing more than a thin linen sheet, or no cover at all. To us, these seem primitive, but to them, every object, every material, every invention had meaning. They reflected not just climate, but belief, identity, and survival. And yet, despite all these strange tools, one truth remained constant: the pursuit of better sleep. From stone pillows to rope beds, from charms to herbs, every culture sought to improve the night's rest, not always for comfort, but for survival, health, and the mysteries of the spirit. So the next time you rest your head on a soft pillow, imagine instead the cool surface of porcelain, the hard edge of wood, or the weight of a carved stone. For millions before us, that was sleep. But beyond tools and objects, there was something even more fascinating: the rituals of night itself. Because sleep was never just about lying down, it was about preparing the mind, the body, and sometimes even the soul for the journey into dreams. And that is where we turn next. Sleep, for our ancestors, was never taken for granted. The night was mysterious. It brought rest, but also danger. Darkness was the realm of spirits, of dreams that could heal or harm, of unseen forces moving just beyond the firelight. And so, long before they closed their eyes, ancient people prepared themselves, body, mind, and soul, for the journey into sleep. Let us step first into ancient Greece. Here, philosophers and physicians alike believed that dreams were messages from the gods. To sleep without preparation was to risk missing those divine whispers. Many Greeks practiced small rituals, washing the feet before bed to cleanse the day's burdens, or offering a silent prayer to Hypnos, the god of sleep. In the great temples of Asclepius, people seeking healing would undergo a ritual known as incubation. They fasted, bathed, sacrificed, and then slept in sacred chambers, hoping that a dream would bring a cure. For them, sleep was not just rest, it was communion with the divine. Travel east, and we find similar practices in India. Ancient Ayurvedic texts advised precise routines for healthy sleep. Before bed, one was to massage the body with warm oils, drink a cup of spiced milk, and recite prayers to invite calmness. Sleep was considered sacred, a gift of balance between body and spirit. To neglect these preparations was to invite imbalance, restless nights, disturbed dreams, even illness. Here, bedtime was ritual as much as necessity. Among the Hebrews of the ancient Near East, prayers before sleep were equally important. The Shema, a declaration of faith, was recited as the last words of the day. To fall asleep without it was to leave one's soul unguarded during the vulnerable hours of night. Sleep, after all, was seen as a small death, a time when the soul wandered, returning only with the dawn. Prayer anchored it, keeping the sleeper safe until morning. But not all rituals were solemn. In medieval Europe, bedtime was often a social affair. Families gathered by the fire, telling stories, singing songs, or sharing a final cup of ale or warm spiced wine. Children were lulled by lullabies, some gentle, some oddly dark, filled with warnings about spirits or thieves in the night. These songs were not just entertainment, they were tools, ways to soothe, to teach, to prepare the mind for rest. In Japan, the rituals were quieter, shaped by discipline and order. Houses were small, rooms multi-purpose. At night, futons were unrolled. The day's space transformed into a place of sleep. Before lying down, it was common to bathe, washing away the day. The warm soak, the clean body, the neat arrangement of bedding, all of it brought a sense of purity to the night. Sleep began not when one closed the eyes, but when the household shifted from day into silence. And then there were rituals of protection. In many cultures, sleep was seen as dangerous because the sleeper was defenseless. Charms and talismans were common. In Europe, sprigs of rosemary or lavender might be hung by the bed to guard against nightmares. In the Middle East, amulets bearing protective verses were placed beneath pillows. In Africa, shamans prepared herbal sachets to keep away wandering spirits. Even today, echoes of these practices remain. In dream catchers above beds, in the habit of leaving a night light on, in whispered prayers before sleep. Of course, not all preparations were spiritual. Some were practical and intoxicating. The Romans, for example, often drank wine before bed, believing it eased the mind into slumber. Medieval Europeans sometimes relied on sleep draughts, herbal mixtures laced with valerian hops, or even opium. These concoctions blurred the line between medicine and ritual, calming the restless and guiding them into dreams. But with them came risks, addiction, confusion, even death. Yet people took the chance because the night demanded rest, and sleep was too precious to lose. Across all these cultures, a pattern emerges. Sleep was never just about lying down. It was about transition, from day into night, from wakefulness into dream, from safety into vulnerability. Rituals, whether prayers, songs, oils, herbs, or charms, were bridges. They carried people across the threshold into the unknown, and in this lies a truth. To our ancestors, sleep was not passive, it was active, a journey, a crossing. And no one dared cross without preparation. But what happened once they were asleep? What did they see in dreams? Did they believe, as many did, that dreams were visions of the future, messages from gods, warnings of death? That, my friend, is the next chapter of our journey. For as long as humans have slept, we have dreamed. And for as long as we have dreamed, we have wondered, what do dreams mean? To ancient people, dreams were never random. They were messages, visions, warnings, sometimes gifts from the gods. To close one's eyes was not simply to rest. It was to enter another world, one that might reveal truths hidden from waking life. Let us begin in Mesopotamia, cradle of civilization. There, priests and kings alike placed great weight on dreams. Entire clay tablets have been discovered, filled with dream interpretations. If you dreamed of eating dates, it meant prosperity. If you dreamed of water, it foretold conflict. If you dreamed of death, it might mean long life, unless the symbols around it suggested otherwise. For Mesopotamians, dreams were like puzzles sent from the heavens, each symbol a clue to destiny. In ancient Egypt, the belief was similar, but infused with magic. Egyptians believed dreams were journeys of the soul into other realms. The Book of Dreams, preserved on papyrus, contained lists of symbols. To dream of drinking warm beer was good. To dream of crocodiles was bad. Priests known as dream interpreters guided pharaohs, sometimes changing the course of politics or war based on a vision in the night. To dream was to glimpse the divine plan. The Greeks took this even further. To them, dreams were not only omens, but direct communications from the gods. In Homer's Iliad, Zeus sends dreams as messengers. In the temples of Asclepius, patients seeking healing would sleep in sacred halls, waiting for the god to appear in their dreams and prescribe a cure. Imagine lying down on a stone floor, surrounded by incense and chanting, hoping that sleep itself would deliver salvation. For the Greeks, dreams were not fantasy, they were medicine. Meanwhile, in China, dreams were tied to the movement of the soul. Ancient texts suggested that during sleep, the Hun, one of the spiritual souls, wandered free, traveling the cosmos. Dreams could therefore reveal truths from beyond, or expose vulnerabilities if the soul strayed too far. To protect against nightmares, people often placed talismans near the bed, or recited prayers to anchor the soul safely within the body. Among Native American traditions, dreams held equally deep power. The Ojibwe people believed in the dream catcher, a web that hung above sleepers, filtering dreams. Bad visions were caught in its threads, dissolved by the morning sun, while good ones slipped through. Dreams were guidance, teaching, and warning, woven into the rhythm of life. But dreams were not only about prophecy or magic. They also revealed the fears and desires of everyday people. In medieval Europe, villagers feared nightmares as attacks from demons or witches. The word nightmare itself once referred not to a dream, but to an evil spirit that sat on the chest of sleepers, suffocating them. To guard against such terrors, people placed iron objects beneath the bed, believing metal repelled dark forces. And yet, even with fear, there was fascination. Across time and cultures, people recorded dreams, retold them, even built rituals around them. Dreams became part of law, religion, medicine, and art. They were woven into the very fabric of civilization. What's striking is this. For thousands of years, people did not see dreams as meaningless. They saw them as a second life, a mirror of the soul. Night after night, humanity slipped into that mirror, searching for truth. So tonight, as you drift into sleep, remember this. You are stepping into the same mystery that your ancestors entered, the same shadows, the same visions, the same strange and beautiful landscapes of the mind. Thousands of years ago, kings and shepherds alike lay down under the same stars, closed their eyes, and dreamed. And though our beds are softer, our rooms warmer, our nights safer, the dreams remain. They are the oldest inheritance we share. So, as this journey through the sleeping world of the past comes to a close, let the stories of ancient nights linger. Let them remind you that to sleep is not just a rest. It is to join a tradition as old as humanity itself, a tradition of survival, of ritual, of mystery, and of dreams. Close your eyes now. Listen to the silence. And remember, you are never alone in sleep. For across time, across history, millions have walked this path before you into the same deep night, carrying the same secret hope of rest, of safety, of tomorrow's dawn.